be suppressed by over 30,000 sales over 2 years. That's 60,000 sales that we haven't seen in our area. And that's why we say that's why these prices just keep going.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the 2025 real estate market with a focus on the DC area. Of course, today is Wednesday, December the 4th. Shawn, how is your Wednesday, December the 4th treating you?
Wednesday, the December the 4th is cold. I'm not a fan of cold weather.
Was it always this cold to start December?
No,
it's been in like the teens at night.
Yeah, it's not always this cold, but it's a good crisp morning, sunny, but freezing. I'm not a fan. And you know what the funny thing is? My neighbor was going to the Christmas tree lighting today. They have to be there at 3:00, and it doesn't start until 6. So they have to sit outside for 3 hours before the Christmas tree lighting.
I don't want to poo-poo that. That's just
weather.
Something I would never do.
There's no way.
I don't want to be a hater against lighting a Christmas tree.
I'll watch it on.
I just
TV.
don't want to do that.
No, thank you.
Got my own tree that I've already lit. All right, Shawn. 2025 real estate market. I mean, my first question is, maybe like not a lot of people are thinking about real estate the first week of December, right? I think people's brains are scattered. I saw a meme where it was like a color-coded graph of the month of December, and it's like pretending to work. I'm going to say I'm going to get, presents, and then like December 24th, like actually buy the presents, and then like January 1st, like realize that it's time to go back to work. So, December is obviously a historically slow time in the real estate market. It's obviously a great time for buyers to get a deal on languished fall market properties and even languished summer market properties. But my question to you is, how quick is the market going to change? How quick is that 2025 market going to start?
January 3rd.
January 3rd.
It's going to be really quick into it, right after the holidays, right after everybody's released. I guarantee, well, I can't guarantee, but I think that the market's going to start picking up right away because everybody pulls back and everybody does the same thing pretty much every year. But I've seen this year a lack of inventory in our area, and I believe that people are waiting, and then finally in January, you're going to see an uptick of lender activity, people doing applications, getting ready for the spring market. And, it'll ease back in, but I think from December's timeframe or even November in Thanksgiving timeframe, no one's really active. There's not a lot of things going on. December's typically slower. But as soon as we get through those holidays, as soon as people are done with their minds on other things, they get back into real estate. And I've oftentimes seen the January market really good. So I think that we'll start seeing the uptick of buyers in the market. We're going to see an increase in showings as soon as January hits. Right now, we're seeing showings pulled back, but we're still seeing properties go under contract. And the question to you is, I have a property coming on the market, and my clients are like, let's just get it on the market. And I'm like, December's typically slower, but what do? Do you get it on the market whenever they want to or whenever the property's ready? And you never know. There's buyers out there. And again, if the property's looking good and it's one that you think people will want, they're going to come out and buy it. It doesn't matter what time of year.
Smoke them while you got them.
So,
the question is, okay, well, if you do have a property to list right now, I think it depends. I think it depends on the exact circumstance. If there's no other units or no other houses like in the neighborhood on the market, you're going to have no competition. You had mentioned earlier, what is everyone thinking? What is everyone doing? Well, if you can zig where everyone else zags, then you're the only show in town. Yeah. And so that could be very beneficial. I'm going to push back a little bit. I'm thinking later half of January after the holiday in January. I can never remember the January holiday and the February holiday, but
me neither.
Think like third, fourth week of January. Things are really, really going to start picking up. I've got some buyers reaching out already, wanting to get things going for early January. So I think the buyers, that mindset shift is going to change for the buyers. And then it's just a matter of the inventory coming on. Shawn, you had mentioned the lack of inventory. To put a number on it, when we were looking at the home sales in the Washington, D.C. metro area in the past couple of years, 2021 had about 80,000 sales. 2022, 62,000. 2023 even lower, 49,000. And then we're going to finish up 2024 around 49,000. So compare 49,000 homes sold in the metro area, the DC metro area, to 2021 when there were over 80,000 homes sold. Now, this is a report from Bright MLS, which I will list and link below. 2025 forecast a little bit higher, around 54,000 homes predicted to sell in 2024 in the Washington, D.C. metro area, which would be a change of about 7%. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting because if you think about it, 80,000 in 2021 is a big number, and to be suppressed by over 30,000 sales over 2 years, that's 60,000 sales that we haven't seen in our area. And that's why we say that's why these prices just keep going. Even though we thought interest rates would quell the market and we'd see a softening of the market, we haven't really seen that in a lot of areas. And really, it depends on the area that you're looking at. But in our DC Arlington market, we're not seeing any price drops unless the property looks bad or there's something wrong with it, or there's always going to be those properties that don't perform well. But as a whole, as the real estate market in 2024, we haven't seen those price drops, and we've seen increases because of the lack of inventory.
Well, let's talk pricing, because I'm going to steal a comment from someone on Facebook. I don't know who it was. I'm sorry. I'm stealing. I'm plagiarizing. I'm copywriting. But they said since 1941, prices have gone up 74 years, down 6, and were unchanged 3 times. 5 of the 6 down years were during the Great Recession of 2007 to 2011. Take out the financial crisis, and there's only been one other down year since 1941. And of course, this is inflation adjusted and all that good stuff. But the fact of the matter is prices have gone up 74 years and down 6. I think I'm going to guess that prices are going to continue to go up.
Yeah, and that's where all these naysayers about, don't buy a single-family home, but why? I mean, this is one of the greatest investments that you can have. If you have an increasing asset in your name that's just going to continue to increase, why wouldn't you just hold on to that thing and let it increase? And it's just going to build wealth. And that's why I don't understand when people say it's not worth buying your single-family house. Of course it is. It's absolutely worth it. That's how people build wealth.
There's a certain hockey player that lives in Arlington, and I just heard that he bought another house in Arlington, and I was like, wait, I think he lives in this other property. And then my source said, no, he's actually buying that house to rent it out as an investment. So buying a single family house, as an investment. I don't know if it's particularly cash flowing, but it's more of that appreciation gain when you have a multi-million-dollar salary. So we've looked at sales, we've looked at prices. Shawn, how about interest rates? Because on the campaign trail, Donald Trump said he would get interest rates down in the 2 to 3% so people could refinance again. Most forecasts are hovering around that kind of 6 mark. What are your thoughts on interest rates? And obviously, when it comes to home sales and the $80,000 figure from 2021, a little bit of a cherry-picked number, I will admit. You go back to 2020, you're closer to 70,000, 2019, closer to 67,000. Now, obviously, that's an inventory problem, but when we look further, why are people not transacting? And it's obviously having to do with interest rates as well.
Yeah, interest rates, it's so hard to predict, and everybody was thinking at the beginning or maybe mid-year when we were doing our predictions with one of our lender friends, we were saying, by the time mid of 2025 comes through, we're going to see 4%, we're going to see 5%, I do think they're going to come down. And I believe it's going to take, all right, so Donald Trump's saying 2-3%. I don't think that's happening. If it happens, it's going to be 4 years from now.
Maybe give him the benefit of the doubt. Hey, I was saying that during my term, and my term is going to be this many years.
Yeah, so you have to think of, it's going to take a while to get there. Could it get there? Yeah, I think that, if certain things are done to spur the economy, and I'm not an economist, but like whatever, if we can get the right things happening, then the interest rates will come down. And I think it's needed to spur that activity. And there's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines waiting for these things to come down. So I think they will reach into the 5s. I think they're going to get into the 5s, probably 5 at the lowest during 2025. That's my prediction. That's my thought.
You're not an economist? You don't want to break down your micro and macroeconomic policy for the viewers and listeners out
but
there?
I thought it would confuse people. I just thought that it was just too much for our viewers to understand, so I just pulled back on that. And
well done. Yeah, a true man of the people, Shawn. Yeah. You know, when it comes to the district and the Northern Virginia sales market, obviously a lot revolves around the government. A lot's been made of Vivek Ramaswamy's DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Is that how you're also pronouncing it?
DOGE, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page there. The task force that has called for federal workers to be in offices 5 days a week. We're trying to figure out what sort of impact the new government the new administration is going to have on the DC area. Because, I was reading an article, and the first time the Trump campaign came around, there were a lot of splashy purchases in Kalorama and Massachusetts Avenue area. But, the more we're looking at it, Trump and his team, they're more of like a Florida and like a New York and I type of, buyer. And I don't know if they're going to be as motivated to drop like the big money purchases that we've seen. And so it begs the question of, okay, if they're not possibly going to drop these huge, amounts of money on these mansions, what about the actual, government workers? What are they going to be buying, the workers and the contractors? So, with the DOGE, with Vivek Ramaswamy's task force, along with Elon Musk, what are we thinking in terms of federal workers? Because a lot of them have moved out to the sticks. They moved out to the suburbs. So do we see them coming back in and selling out in the exurbs, or are we going to see this sort of lull in the DC market?
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time. It depends on how quickly they enact this stuff and what measures they take to actually reduce the size of the government or the government waste. But if we see that they are taking 100,000 people in this area and they're relocating them or they're just getting rid of them, that will have a big effect on our real estate market. Now, we've seen our markets swallow up all of the activity that usually comes in. And as you said, in 2021, we saw 80,000 sales. We've only seen 50. So even if we see 30,000 more sales in the area this year, we should be able to gobble it up. Now, are there as many buyers out there because they're reducing the size of the government? I don't know. I mean, that's going to be the tough thing to really figure out. But I think this will take some time. I don't think it's going to have a dramatic, quick effect on things. The more... I think over the next 2-3 years, we will see once they start having people go back to government, we might see people say, I can't stand this commute anymore, man. I bought this place because I didn't have to go to work and now I have to go back into the office. And we will see either maybe people holding on to those and buying something smaller in just for that commute, weekly commute, or finding something to rent closer by. I think that'll have a larger effect than the reduction of government in our area. I'm hoping. Anyway.
What's been popular recently on social media is not the commute, but the super commute.
Yeah.
Shawn, the super
the
commute?
Super commute,
the super commute is when you live in Akron, Ohio, and you take you take a plane to New York City, 2 or 3 times, maybe call it 2 times a week for, your meetings. You get there at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatnot, and then you come all the way back. And I think that was cool for a day or 2 days, but how sustainable is a super commute? I don't think the future of working is going to be the super commute.
No, the super commute is awful. And I did a not so super commute.
When were you super commuting?
I was commuting from Pennsylvania to New York City.
School super commuting.
Pennsylvania to New York City.
Well, that's just commuting. That's just I think you need to take more than one form of transportation.
Yeah, so basically I would take the car to New Jersey, I'd jump on a train and take that in, or sometimes I'd take the bus. But that would sometimes take up to 2 hours to get there, depending on the traffic and everything else. I could make it to the city in about an hour and 15 minutes if it was no traffic. But there were people on the trains that were coming up from, southern New Jersey the whole way to New York, or even Philly to New York. And that's a couple hour commute every day or a couple times a week. That weighs on your body, your mind, your family, everything else. And there's only so long you can do that, especially as you have a family and your life changes. Man, that job, you're like, no way, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll go find something else.
Well, do you find something else, or do you find another house closer in?
Well, that's true. Either or, right? I mean,
what did you do?
I moved out of the area. I came down here and changed my whole job, and I couldn't stand commuting. And I said to myself, I will never commute again because it wears on you. And I had a car that I was driving. My commute was 50 miles each way just to my one office. If I went to the New York City office, it was even further. And I would sit in that every day, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And my body was angsty, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, I will never commute. I moved down here. I got my real estate license, and I started selling further out, like anywhere I could in the DC area. And then in my career, I've localized it more and more and more. So now, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, stay as close as you can. Now, do I go out? Sure. I go out to Loudoun County too, but not as often as I like to stay right here.
Yeah, I think there's a huge emphasis on, time and well-being and mental health. I was talking to a buddy, and he's like, all right, so if you move out of Arlington, like how far out would you be open to moving? And I think he wanted me to say, oh, maybe Chantilly, maybe Centerville, maybe Sterling. I told him Falls Church City, maybe Westover, maybe East Falls Church. I could go all the way out to Falls Church City, and he kind of laughed at me, and I wasn't giving him the answer that I think he wanted, but I think I value, and there's probably a lot of other people out there that truly value like their community and kind of the closeness of proximity of everything as compared to, a big old 5-bedroom house, an hour away from anything that you want to be.
These are always the things that people have to weigh whenever they're purchasing real estate. Yeah, you can go out further and you can have an awesome house. And I've thought about it so many times. And I've gone from, Arlington to Vienna, then out to Loudoun County. And you look at the differences of what you can buy and you're like, you get jealous. You're like, man, I wish I could have this house. It would be amazing. But then you start thinking of your life and what you want it to be and where you want your kids to go to school and all that stuff. And that all weighs in. And for me, I'm so glad that I purchased a home in Arlington. And, I've kind of crafted, it's taken me a long time. It's taken me 20 years to get there. But now we're really happy with where we are. And I think, when you're purchasing real estate, sometimes it's not going to be that, oh my gosh, I have the best house ever, because it is a transition. It takes a few sales sometimes to get there to the one that you're totally happy with. And, I've made some good purchases in the past. I've made some bad purchases in the past, but in the end, I'm happy where I am. So can I ask you, do you have a 2025 plan for a purchase? Do you want to share anything about maybe the 2025 plans for yourself?
I think if the right property came about, the wifey and I would look to move. We would look to purchase a house in Arlington, preferably. Yeah. I mean, we could go out to Falls Church City. We've kind of looked in that McLean area, but for what we're looking for, we both really value walkability. Yeah. Thankfully, this area, you can find so many options where, you can walk to things. And so, we're not in any rush. We have the sweetest of the sweetheart deals here in the condo currently. Mm-hmm. And, if there is another little human being to come along, it's 1,300 square feet. I mean, people raise kids, 2-3 kids in 1,300 square feet all the time. Yeah. And they can do it. And the issue of going out, which I think my wife is more scared about, but I am also very cognizant about, is once you move to a bigger house from 1,300 to, let's say, 2,800, now you have space. And what do you do with space, Shawn? You fill it up. You fill it up with junk. You fill it up with toys. You fill it up with crap, right? So Elaine and I are both very lean from a stuff standpoint. And I think we want to make sure we're not just moving because it's the sexy and cool thing to do, but because it's right for our family.
Yeah. Matt, you know what I used to be? One of those slim, I don't want a lot of junk. I can't stand it. And guess what happens? You buy a bigger house and you buy a bigger house and you fill it, and then you have kids and the kids destroy it. I mean, if you would come to my house right now, Shakufa was over at my house yesterday, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, man. My house is a complete wreck. I had my family over for Thanksgiving. I haven't even cleaned that stuff up, and my kids destroy everything. And you know what happens? In-laws buy toys, and then moms and dads buy toys.
I'm curious, because you mentioned toys. What's your toy policy for your children? And what have you told your in-laws about purchasing things for your kids.
Yeah, there's no boundaries, unfortunately.
There's no boundaries.
Yeah,
so that tells me that the kids are in charge of the toys.
No, the kids aren't. I think the mother-in-law is in charge of the toys.
Okay.
So yeah, you could set boundaries, but it's hard sometimes.
What boundaries have you set with toys?
Let me think here. Toys.
This might be a while, folks.
Yeah. I can't. I mean, we have so many toys in that dang house. Anyways, yeah, you're going to fill that house no matter where you go. But I think you're doing the right thing. Make the right choice. Make the right choice for you and your family, and do it at the time frame that you are. And don't let the market drive your decision. Let your life drive your decision.
Well, yeah, it's both, right? Because we're seeing houses, and some of the house lanes, like, oh, I really like this one. Like, if we were actually in a position. And I, off the cuff was like, yeah, it'll be $100,000 next year. And I think that actually kind of hit home to her, where she's like, oh, crap. So yeah. There's the issue of, hey, we can hang out in the condo for a while. But as we're doing that, all of the prices around us are increasing. And so wouldn't it make more sense, Shawn, to like buy a little bit before we actually need it, so that the time when we do need it, we're kind of priced into the market already?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if you wait and wait and wait, you're going to miss your opportunities. And there's so many people that I've talked to in the past where they'd been renting in the same spot for decades. And my buddy was like, actually one of my buddies, he ended up buying a townhouse, but he rented for so long. He missed all of this increase in value from like the year 1999 through 2008 when he finally bought, 2012 or whatever, whenever he bought, I can't remember. But he missed such a huge opportunity, an increase in value, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the prices hadn't popped. Yeah, we did see a correction back in 2008, but that was like a really strange situation. And now we've rebounded and we've gone up. I was in your situation where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing these prices go up. I need to buy. And I bought, and then 2005, 6, 7 hit. And I'm like, oh, geez. But, we're not seeing those same economic factors hit. And I think you're right. It sometimes makes sense to just buy something. Don't sell it within a couple of years. Hold on to it make sure you can live there for at least 4 years. Try to stay there for 4 years. You should see, if it's a single family home property or townhouse, you should see some increase in value. Condos, that's a little bit longer situation where you're not going to see the increase in value that you would with a single family home.
My wife's cousin, second cousin's cousin, had us up to their place in Nantucket, and the guy's a builder. And I was like, well, I'd love to hear like some real estate advice from someone who's, been doing this for, as long as I've been alive, longer than I've been alive. And he's like, buy land. And I'm like, well, what did you do? He's like, well, I came to Nantucket, I fell in love with it, and I bought some land, and then 20 years later, I built a house. Like, that's great, but like where are we going to buy land that's like Nantucket, where it's just going to like increase in value? So I think there are some issues with generational advice where, maybe the baby boomers generation doesn't really ring true advice wise to real estate advice for millennials, Gen Z, and whatnot. But as I go through this home, searching and home buying experience, Shawn, I hope to do it without blinders on. So if I'm kind of in a rabbit hole, or if it looks like I have blinders on, I hope you tap me on the shoulder, because I don't want to be like, Murph in Interstellar, where he's like banging on the glass saying like, no, don't do it. Did you see Interstellar, or are you just looking at me?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, so that reference went over your head, but basically he's kind of like looking at himself making a mistake and like trying to tell himself like not to do it.
Yeah. What I see you, I mean, like, Matt, you have born and raised in Arlington, Virginia. I see you as the mayor of Arlington, Virginia. The mayor can't move out of Arlington, Virginia. That's my personal stance. I think your best bet is always to stay within Arlington. Falls Church is great too, Falls Church City, but I always see you in Arlington, and that's kind of my thought. But if life takes you outside, then, change is fine. And, I've done it. I've moved outside of Arlington and I came back. But it took my life to figure that out, and sometimes life takes you places that you need to go before you can make that final decision.
Well, LeBron James had to leave Cleveland to go to Miami to come back to Cleveland to win a championship.
That's right.
So
sometimes there's that journey.
Not comparing myself to the king, but maybe I'll have to leave to find myself and to come back.
Yeah. So what else do you think about the 2025 market? Are we?
I think we covered pretty much a lot of it.
Yeah,
Was there
interest
something
rates.
specific that you wanted to cover that we hadn't touched on?
The market's the market's going to be tight again in our area, but again, nationally it's going to be completely different. But I think there's a few things that we're going to be running into. Number one is the commission dispute. Okay, so once we start getting into the spring market around here, we're going to see competition, and competition is going to bring in a lot of different offers. And those offers now are going to have commissions included in those offers. And we've seen this now for a couple of months, but we haven't seen the height of the spring market yet. And so I think that's going to bring some big trials and tribulations into how people write contracts, who they're getting to represent them. And we are going to see some fumbles in this spring market because of that. And so like we were going over a couple weeks ago about calculating these escalation addenda. Right. So I think that's one thing that I think people need to be cognizant of when they're writing their offers and who they're competing against and who they're getting to represent them in their purchase. I think it's important.
Yeah, escalation clauses are not going to be the same as they were last year, a couple years ago. Their use case is going to be completely different now that agents are, I'm going to say agents are going to be lazy, but honestly, dude, it's not easy. I mean, sure, I have the Excel formula. I just type it in and it give me a number, but it should be easier. There should be an easier solution. I hope the fine folks at NVAR are working on that or working on some sort of spreadsheet, because if half the agents say, yes, let me put it in my equation, and the other half say no escalation clauses or, oh, I'm just going to counter you, that's not a good answer. We need something easier and better for all parties involved. Absolutely.
It's going to be a rough road, and we're going to see it. We're going to see people get angry. We're probably going to see people reported to the board because of, oh, you didn't treat me fairly or you didn't do this right or whatever. But in the end, it's the seller's choice, and that's that agent that's representing the seller to say, hey, this is what I think you should do. And in the end, it's, that's the tough thing about real estate. Is you can lose based on a bad decision. You can lose based on the commission rate. You can lose based on not doing your due diligence, not doing a pre-inspection. There's so many problems that can arise in the contract writing process that, will make people lose and make people be stronger in their next offer. And that's the problem with real estate, man. It's tough.
Well said. I don't really have much to add after that.
Yeah, 2025 is going to be strong. It's going to be low inventory. If we see these interest rates get into the mid-5s, we're going to see a little bit more inventory kick in. I think we will get into the mid-5s. I think that, it's going to be a strong market. I think 50-some thousand sales in this area will be healthy again. We need to see more inventory come in.
Well put. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying this discussion. And for Shawn and myself, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.